966 Mieszko przyjął chrzest i od tamtej pory Polska chrześcijańska jest, wyprawa na Wołyń. Chrobry pierwszym królem, rozbicie dzielnicowe, Polska podzielona murem. Potem Konrad Mazowiecki sprowadza krzyżaków, zabiorą nam Pomorze, ruszymy do ataku. W XIV wieku Uniwersytet w Krakowie, pierwszy krok w edukacji w całej Polsce. Kazimierz Wielki zastał Polskę drewnianą, a jak odchodził to zostawił piękną murowaną. Bitwa pod Grunwaldem, gdzie krzyżak był poległy, wojna 13-letnia, gdzie miliony poległych. Nadszedł XV wiek i wielki rozwój kultury, muzyka, dzieła sztuki i zmiana architektury. W XVI wieku Wielka Unia Polsko-Litewska, Polak i Litwin w jednym kraju zaczął mieszkać. Jeszcze Polska nie zginęła, póki my żyjemy. Nie chcemy stąd uciekać, chcemy na ojczystej ziemi. Żyć, marzyć, śnić i zawsze z dumą w sercu krzyczeć: jestem Polakiem, choć tyle było przeszkód. Jeszcze Polska nie zginęła, póki my żyjemy. Nie chcemy stąd uciekać, chcemy na ojczystej ziemi. Żyć, marzyć, śnić i zawsze z dumą w sercu krzyczeć: jestem Polakiem, choć tyle było przeszkód. Potop szwedzki i obrona Jasnej Góry, Najświętsza Matka Boska obroniła tamte mury. Jan III Sobieski podczas odsieczy wiedeńskiej pokazał męstwo, niszcząc hordę flagi tureckiej. Potem Polska znalazła się pod wpływem Rosji, aż na 120 lat zniknęła z mapy Europy. Rosjan plus Austriak zagarnęli to co nasze. Polska była nadal, choć nie było jej na mapie. Listopadowe powstanie, choć nierówne szanse. Całą noc rodacy walczyli o wolny kraj ten. Powstanie styczniowe, gdzie Polak był poległy. Pamięć o tych ludziach, oni za nasz kraj ginęli. Choć nie było szkół, ani też polskiego języka, to przez kilka pokoleń przetrwała nasza tradycja. To bohaterowie, w których polska krew płynęła. Pomyśl czasem o nich, by pamięć nie zginęła. Jeszcze Polska nie zginęła, póki my żyjemy. Nie chcemy stąd uciekać, chcemy na ojczystej ziemi. Żyć, marzyć, śnić i zawsze z dumą w sercu krzyczeć: jestem Polakiem, choć tyle było przeszkód. Jeszcze Polska nie zginęła, póki my żyjemy. Nie chcemy stąd uciekać, chcemy na ojczystej ziemi. Żyć, marzyć, śnić i zawsze z dumą w sercu krzyczeć: jestem Polakiem, choć tyle było przeszkód. Wielki hołd i szacunek dla tamtych ludzi. Polak pokazał, że nie da na siebie bluźnić. Tak jak polegli żołnierze, co bronili Westerplatte, szyć czwórkami do nieba, by obronić to co nasze. Okupacja niemiecka, znów miliony ofiar w ludziach. Terroryzm i głód zabijał nasze uczucia. Powstanie warszawskie zawsze, pamiętaj o tym. Wielcy bohaterowie walczyli o wolność Polski. A po wojnie mamy totalitarne getto. Stalin wprowadza tu komunistyczne piekło. Walki robotników z milicją obywatelską, walki ze specją o ojczyznę naszą piękną. Wojciech Jaruzelski wprowadza stan wojenny. Bunt w muzyce, walki z milicją i protesty. Ponad 20 lat żyjemy w wolnym kraju, w kraju nad Wisłą o pięknym zwyczaju. Dziś nie ma żadnej wojny, mamy nowe ustawy, zakazy, nakazy, wolne wybory, a już nie rozkazy. Mamy własne mieszkania, mamy własne firmy. Pogoni za pieniędzmi, zapominamy o wszystkim. Zapominamy o innych, zapominamy historii. To dzięki nim, dlatego weź o nich nie zapomnij. Weź o nich nie zapomnij. Jeszcze Polska nie zginęła, póki my żyjemy.
Officially, the Republic of Poland is a country located in Central Europe, or Eastern Europe, it depends who you ask. Wow, this isn't a great start. It's next to Germany, basically. Geographically, Poland is bordered by Russia's Kaliningrad Oblast and Lithuania to the northeast, Belarus and Ukraine to the east, Slovakia and the Czech Republic to the south, Germany to the west, and the good old Baltic Sea to the north. The establishment of the nation of Poland can be traced back to the year 966, when a guy called Mieszko I, who ruled over an area that's largely coextensive with the territory of present-day Poland, converted to Christianity, as was the fashion to do at the time. In 1447, a guy called, Kazimierz IV Jagiellonczyk became the King of Poland, and later became known as the Father of Europe. Of his numerous children, 1 became a cardinal, 4 became kings, 1 was canonized as a saint, and 3 of his daughters married into noble families to become the mothers of the heirs of several of the greatest dynasties in Western Europe. In 1569, the alliance between Poland and Lithuania was upgraded to the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, a bi-confederation dual state which constituted one of the largest and most populous countries of the 16th and 17th century Europe, roughly 390,000 square miles big. The 150 years or so between the late 15th century and the mid-17th century are often referred to as the Polish Golden Age, marked by several decades of prosperity and stability. The country's political system also featured a number of attributes that later evolved into the modern concept of democracy, including checks on monarchical power, protected rights for minorities, relative religious tolerance, and multiculturalism. It was a happening place to be. By the mid-17th century, however, the stability of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth had begun to weaken. Other states and groups, such as the Tsardom of Russia, the Kingdom of Prussia, Sweden, and the Ukrainian Cossacks, began to rise in prominence and exploited the Commonwealth's growing weakness, leading to territorial losses and dwindling political significance. This was further exacerbated by prolific conflicts and infighting between the nation's nobles. It was no longer a happening woke place to be. In 1793, Poland ratified the 3rd of May Constitution, so named because, well, I'm sure you can figure it out. The Constitution was the first set of modern supreme national laws in Europe, second only in the world to the Constitution of the United States, which came into force in 1789. It's okay if you didn't know this, though. Americans don't really like to talk about their Constitution. They're very reserved and quiet about it. Hehehe. More than a century after the partitions of Poland at the end of the 18th century, around 2 million Polish soldiers fought in the First World War, supporting Britain, France and Russia against Germany, Austria-Hungary and Italy. Almost a quarter of Polish soldiers who fought in the First World War were killed, constituting the deaths of around 450,000 people. After the war ended in 1918, Poland was finally reborn. It regained its independence with the signing of the Treaty of Versailles, which granted roughly 20,000 square miles of land to Poland at the expense of Germany. After 123 years, Poland was once again an independent nation. You got this, girl. On the 1st of September 1939, the Second World War began with the invasion of Poland by Germany, backed by Stalin's army from the east. While Germany had been preparing for war for a number of years, Poland was relatively unprepared, and by the end of the month, Warsaw had fallen to the Nazis. After which the Polish government fled to Great Britain but continued working as a government in exile. Still, Polish armies and units continued to fight alongside Allied forces, and made considerable contributions to the fight against the Nazis. Polish pilots, for instance, were instrumental in achieving victory during the Battle of Britain, and provided crucial information that led to the breaking of the Enigma Code. Polish fighters also organised one of the largest underground armies in Europe's history, known as the Home Army, which consisted of as many as 600,000 soldiers, saboteurs and intelligence operatives. Happily, Polish forces were also accompanied by Wojtek, a literal bear who carried ammunition to the front lines and actually helped recapture Italy for the Allies. Wojtek, who stood at 6 feet tall and weighed 500 pounds, was a huge source of morale for Polish soldiers, and would apparently enjoy drinking beer out of a bottle just like the rest of his human comrades. After the war, Wojtek lived out the rest of his life at Edinburgh Zoo in Scotland, where he was often visited by fans and former Polish soldiers. He even appeared on the British children's TV show Blue Peter on several occasions, and frankly there's no greater honour in the UK. Here's to Wojtek, the most interesting bear in the world. Ultimately, however, the Second World War utterly devastated Poland. By the end of the conflict, more than 6 million Polish citizens had been killed. What's more, around 90% of Poland's Jewish population was systematically murdered. Sadly, even after finishing the Second World War on the winning side, Poland continued its unfortunate habit of being royally screwed over. In 1952, the Polish People's Republic was officially established as a satellite state under the Soviet influence, and was forced to adopt communism as its political system, despite Stalin's previous assurances that he would respect Polish sovereignty and allow free and fair elections. Spoiler alert, he didn't. In 1989, Solidarity won a resounding victory in Poland's first partially free and democratic parliamentary elections since the end of the Second World War, prompting the nation's transition away from communism and establishing the Third Polish Republic, which still exists today. Since then, Poland got itself a fancy new constitution in 1997, joined NATO in 1999 and the European Union in 2004. After a long and turbulent history, today Poland is a stable and modern democracy that has seen significant improvements in freedom of speech, human rights and civil liberties. And we here at 101 Facts couldn't be prouder of you, Poland. Na zdrowia! Today, Poland is known officially as Rzeczpospolita Polska, which translates to the Republic of Poland. Interestingly, the word Rzeczpospolita is reserved exclusively to refer to Poland, and the other republic is referred to in Polish as Republika. The meaning of life. The actual word Poland originates from the name of a West Slavic tribe known as the Polani, which ultimately derives from the word Pole, meaning field. As such, the word Poland essentially means land of the people living in fields, which is nice, I guess, and technically true. Poland's current territory covers an area of roughly 120,562 square miles, making it slightly smaller than the US state of New Mexico, and about 6.5 times smaller than Old Mexico, which is also known as Mexico. With a population of approximately 38.5 million people, Poland is the 6th most populous country in the European Union. However, Poland is poised to become the 5th most populous member of the EU fairly soon, owing to a little thing called... well, I don't want to say it. It rhymes with schmeckshit. Let's move on. Poland's capital and largest city is Warsaw, which in Polish is pronounced Warszawa. The city has a population of around 1.7 million residents. As you probably already know, because I've mentioned it several times already, Poland's official language is Polish. It's spoken by about 45 million people, most of whom obviously reside in Poland. It's often stated that Polish is one of the most difficult languages for non-native speakers to learn. In Poland, the end of certain surnames can differ based on gender. But also, if you're a woman and your father's surname is Kowalski, your surname would be Kowalska. This trait has not survived in every part of the Polish diaspora, and people with Polish surnames in many places like the United States use only the male form, regardless of gender, because men are the best. Go men. That's obviously a joke. It should come as no surprise to anyone that Poland is a very religious country. Indeed, about 90% of the Polish population identify as Roman Catholic, though some estimates put the actual figure at almost 95%. That's almost as many Catholics as the Vatican, where they make Catholics. Poland's highest point is Mount Resse, which is located on the country's southern border with Slovakia. Standing at 8,199 feet tall, the mountain's name is believed to mean scratches or crevices, referring to the rugged terrain on its western side. Sorry, I don't know why I went all sexy there for a mountain, but it's quite imposing. While we're on the topic of mountains, it's worth mentioning that the highest mountain in Australia, Mount Kosciuszko,
It's Mount Kosciuszko.
was named after Tadeusz Kosciuszko, who led the aforementioned Kosciuszko uprising. Poland contains over 10,000 lakes, which I believe is quite a lot of lakes. The largest lake in Poland, called Śniadów, is located in the northeast of the country and has a surface area of 43.9 square miles. Poland is home to no less than 15 UNESCO World Heritage Sites, 14 of which are cultural, referring to the country's rich and complicated history. These include the historic centres of Warsaw and Krakow, the wooden churches of southern Polska, and, sadly, Auschwitz. Another interesting entry on the list is Malbork Castle in North Poland, which is also known by its far more dramatic full name of the Castle of the Teutonic Order in Malbork. Built in the 13th century, Malbork Castle is the largest castle in the world by land area, covering a single area of 143,591 square meters. That's a lot of castle. Poland's only UNESCO World Heritage Site in its natural category is the Białowieża Primeval Forest, which covers 547 square miles of land along the border between Poland and Belarus. It's one of the last and largest remaining parts of an enormous ancient forest that once stretched across the entire European plain. Białowieża is home to 800 European bison, Europe's heaviest land animal. Having been hunted to extinction in the wild in the early 20th century, the species was kept alive in captivity and has since been reintroduced into several countries in Europe. I bet when they went over there, they said, "Bye, son." Close to the town of Gryfino, near Poland's northwestern border with Germany, there is a mysterious forest which contains several hundred pine trees that bend sharply at the base of their trunks before gradually sloping back up to its vertical position. It's believed that the trees were planted at some point in the 1930s, and though the cause of their bizarre shape is presumed to be some sort of human intervention, the means and motive are unknown. The forest is today known by the not at all creepy nickname, the Crooked Forest. Poland is mainly comprised of lush countryside, but surprisingly, the country is actually home to the Błędów Desert, which is a legit desert. Yes, a desert in the middle of Europe. Błędów Desert was not created naturally, but as a result of human activity which rendered the ground unable to support plant life, so go us, I guess. A scrummy Polish sweet treat of note is pączki, which are Poland's version of the humble donut. It's estimated that 100 million pączki are consumed in Poland every year on the Thursday before Ash Wednesday alone. Poland has a diverse culinary tradition, of which one of the most well-known items is Polish dumplings, or pierogi. These famous little morsels are made by wrapping unleavened dough around a savoury or sweet filling, and then cooking them in boiling water or by frying them in a pan. They're basically like Slavic gyoza, which is incidentally the name of my upcoming thrash metal album. Don't bite it, even I think it's really bad. The pierogi is so beloved in Polish cuisine that every year on the 8th of October, Polish Americans in the US celebrate National Pierogi Day, in honour of their delicious dumpling heritage. Do you like pierogis? More to the point, have you ever tried one? Poland is also widely known for its production and consumption of vodka, the distilled alcoholic beverage known for its delightful propensity to get you absolutely raddled in no time at all. Scholars debate the origins of vodka as both Poland and Russia claim to have invented it. But we do know that the word vodka was first used in Polish documents all the way back in 1405, but Poles have varied tastes in their choice of booze, and certainly enjoy beer a great deal too. On average, Polish people drink around 92 litres of beer a year, placing Poland third in Europe in consumption of beer behind only Germany and the Czech Republic. Poland has produced a number of humanity's greatest thinkers, who've helped our species along in its unquenchable hunger for sweet, sweet knowledge. One such smarty-pants Pole was Nicolaus Copernicus, whose actual Polish name was Mikołaj Kopernik. Born in 1473, Copernicus worked as a doctor, lawyer, architect, and soldier before constructing an observatory and writing De Revolutionibus Orbium Coelestium, which correctly stated that the sun was at the centre of the planetary system rather than the Earth, prompting it to be quickly banned by the Catholic Church for being just too real, man. Another Polish clever clogs was Marie Curie, who was widely remembered for her pioneering work in the field of radioactivity. Born Maria Skłodowska in Warsaw in 1867, Curie moved to Paris in early 1880 and married Frenchman Pierre Curie in 1895. Together, they discovered the elements polonium and radium in the late 19th century, and Curie herself is credited for coining the term radioactivity and for conducting the world's first studies into the treatment of tumours using radioactive isotopes. We owe her a great deal, basically. In 1903, Curie won her first Nobel Prize in physics along with her husband and another colleague, Henri Becquerel. After the death of her husband in 1906, Marie was appointed to her husband's professorship, becoming the first woman to teach at Sorbonne University in Paris. Curie won a second Nobel Prize in chemistry in 1911 for her research in the isolation of pure radium. Not only is Curie the first woman to win a Nobel Prize, she's also the first person to win 2 Nobel Prizes, the only woman to win in 2 fields, and the only person to win in multiple sciences. She's a science banff, basically. In the late 19th century, a Polish guy named Ludwik Leitzer-Zamenhof, more commonly known as L.L. Zamenhof, created the artificial language of Esperanto, the most widely spoken constructed language in the world. Zamenhof created Esperanto to be as simple and intuitive as possible, with regular grammar and spelling that would allow it to become a shared international language used by people all over the world. Today, around 2 million people speak Esperanto, a small number of whom learned it from birth. In 1912, a Polish-born American biochemist named Casimir Szwank, commonly anglicised to Casimir Funk, first formulated the concept of vitamin, something my body desperately craves yet I desperately avoid. In 1978, Mirosław Hermaszewski became the first Polish national to go to space, flying aboard the Soyuz 30 spacecraft and spending almost 8 days on board the Salyut 6 space station. At the time of making this video, Hermaszewski remains the only Polish person to leave Earth. Poland also produced Maksymilian Faktorowicz, who founded a little cosmetics company called Max Factor in California in 1909. Faktorowicz also invented modern eyelash extensions, provided his service as a beautician to early stars of Hollywood, and in 1920 coined the word makeup based on the verb phrase to make up one's face, a term that I'm told is still used today. The Polish former strongman and current mixed martial artist Mariusz Pudzianowski won the title of World's Strongest Man no less than 5 times, more than any other athlete. Apparently, Poland exports more amber than any other country in the world. That's it, that's the fact. Between 1974 and 1991, Poland was home to the Warsaw Radio Mast, which was at the time the tallest structure in the world. It stood at an incredible 2,121 feet high, until a catastrophic failure on the 8th of August 1991, causing it to bend and snap at roughly half its height, and yes, that was a Legally Blonde reference. Only one structure has ever surpassed the height of the Warsaw Radio Mast, and that honour belonged to the Burj Khalifa, the current tallest building in the world. Poland is home to one of the world's oldest salt mines, the Wieliczka salt mine, located in the southern Polish town of, you guessed it, Wieliczka. Built in the 13th century, the mine reaches a depth of 1,073 feet and is over 178 miles long, producing table salt all the way up until 2007. Wieliczka salt mine is now a popular tourist attraction, containing dozens of statues, 3 chapels, and an entire cathedral carved out of rock salt by the miners, often referred to as the underground salt cathedral of Poland. Approximately 1.2 million visitors walk through the salt mine every year. Poland is also the proud owner of the Christ the King monument, an enormous statue of Jesus Christ, the central figure. At 33 meters in height, Christ the King is 3 meters taller than the much more well-known statue of Christ the Redeemer in the Brazilian city of Rio de Janeiro, making it the tallest statue of Jesus in the world. In 2004, a local council member initiated a motion to rename a street in the Polish town of Grabowiec to honor one of his greatest loves, Star Wars. After the decision was accepted in early 2005, the street was officially dubbed Ulica Obi-Wana Kenobigo, which means Obi-Wan Kenobi Street in Polish. The change generated significant media attention, attracted fans from across Poland, and even prompted a congratulatory letter from representatives of Lucasfilm. It's nice to end on a happy note after such a harrowing video.
Ignacy Paderewski. Born to become the greatest pianist of all time. In Poland, he inspired patriotic feelings. He used his fame to advocate for Polish independence. In America, he recruited volunteers for the Polish army in France. Thousands answered his call. In Poznan, a Polish city in the Prussian partition, his visit was enough to inspire an uprising. He convinced the American president and then the entire West that Europe had no future without Poland. He even became Prime Minister of Poland, which had been resurrected after 123 years of statelessness. But his wife did not enjoy the political limelight. When independent Poland was rising from the ashes again, Paderewski ordered millions of dollars in aid from America. When Poland was attacked by Nazi Germany in September 1939, Ignacy Paderewski, in exile, renewed his struggle for Polish independence.
makes us proud.